Welcome to our channel here at Psychology Ninjas. We're focusing in on learning theories and Bandura's 1965 study. As it says here from the title, we're talking about whether the model was positively reinforced or positively punished and how this affected imitation of aggression. When we're thinking about this, it's important that you have key and unique details for the aim, procedure, findings and conclusions. You want to treat this a little bit like a classic or contemporary study because it could be an 8 marker in its own right. Therefore, when we're thinking about the aim, we're talking about reinforcement and punishment. Key details for the procedure that are different from the others is that it's 33 boys and 33 girls here. We're talking about an independent group's design, so they were randomly allocated to the model reward, model punished or control group. You want to have key details about how they were rewarded, so candies and soft drink. The punishment was that they were talking about, hey there you big bully, you're picking on that clown and I won't tolerate it. It's more important that you have these unique details than a really long discussion that's exactly the same as 61. Here it's important with the findings that the model punished condition was significantly less aggressive, although even the promise of a reward was enough to increase aggression in all 3 groups. Here we're talking about vicarious reinforcement as our conclusion, and that reinforcement has a significant effect on aggression. When we're evaluating, we're in the mode of a study, and therefore we're thinking about grave in order to form our evaluation points. When we're thinking about this, we want to have arguments and counter-arguments, and it's important here again that we tailor these to 1965, although the general points may be similar to 1961 and 1963. So we start off with this evaluate question as an 8 marker by talking about the aim and the participants for 1965. Don't worry, the exam board will give you some hints by giving you the full title, and therefore it's important that you use that information to tailor your ideas. Where we're talking about the fact that this is ethnocentric and all-American participants is the fact that a promise of a reward may be more influential in individualistic cultures, or that reward might need to be different in terms of different cultural standards. We can still counter this by talking about the use of both genders, particularly in terms of the participants or the children. It is important to note here that all the models were men in both conditions, and we know from 61 this would have had an impact on same-sex replication of behaviours. We'd move on through and talk about the procedure. When talking about a standardised procedure, although a great evaluation point, we don't want to leave it as something generic that could apply to any study. So we can talk about here that the same female experimenter conducted the study for all the participants, but also that the models all said the same thing when they were interacting with the Bobo doll. They said, "Sockaroo, stay down." The fact that the Bobo doll raises up may also still be important in terms of explaining behaviour, and that more violence and aggression was encouraged from the children because of the nature of the Bobo doll. Overall though, 1965 still has high levels of internal reliability. We'd then want to move through and give our findings, and we can apply that to the real world through the Sabido method. The fact that we can use the reward and punishment of role models in order to change behaviours that are topical in society. And this was first introduced with telenovelas. It's also important here that we can talk about the behaviour of other people and the consequences that this has on behaviour. The findings are important here because they tell us what we see from other people in terms of their rewards and punishment is important on our own behaviour, and therefore we want to be thinking about the actions of our characters on TV and the consequences that they face. The fact that we can apply these in order to create behavioural modification programmes on TV gives these findings credibility. We can move through and talk about our conclusions. Again, we want to think about this in terms of the reward and punishment of the model. It's really important here that you're using vicarious reinforcement. We can talk here as a strength in terms of internal validity. The fact that these were an independent group's design means that it's unlikely that the participants would have showed order effects or understood the aims of the study. That the low levels of prior aggression were randomly allocated to the model punished condition is also important. However, we can talk about demand characteristics, and Noble said that some of the children came out and knew exactly what they were meant to do in this study, and therefore it may limit its application externally. Our final finding is to talk about the promise of a reward and that this encouraged aggression across all the groups. We can talk about the ethics in relation to this study, and specifically we want to talk about that rewards were typical and desirable for the population at the time. Overall though, this 1965 study was ethical. Here's our first exam question. 2-marker here, and we've got explain. We want to give as much detail as we possibly can so that it doesn't look like a state question. We're talking here about findings, and it's 1965, so we want to give specifics. To access marks in this question, we want 2 clear, distinct findings. That the model punish condition was significantly less aggressive than the other 2 conditions, but that the introduction of a promise of a reward for all the conditions, reward, punished and control, significantly increased the aggression of all the groups. Let's have a look at a 4-mark question. Here we've got explain, and we're focusing specifically on the applications of Bandura's 1965 study. Thanks for tuning in to Psychology Ninjas today. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell. See you next time.